My brother told my parents my job would embarrass him at Thanksgiving. 5 days later, he watched me win an award in front of 280 people. My mother's voice had that careful quality when she called, the one she uses when she's about to say something she's already rehearsed. "So, Thanksgiving," she said. I set my keys on the counter, still in my Carhartt jacket, still smelling like polyurethane and pine from the Dilworth job site. There was joint compound dried into my left cuff and a blister on my palm from carrying 2x4s that afternoon. And I was 34 years old, and I just managed a 6-man crew through a structural complication that would have made half the contractors in Charlotte walk off the job. "Okay," I said. "What about it?" "Evan's bringing someone this year. His girlfriend, Natalie. First time she's meeting the family, and he wants everything to go smoothly." I waited. He asked if maybe this year it could just be the 4 of them. Him, Natalie, me, and your father. Keep it small, intimate. I stood very still in my kitchen. "Mom," I said, "I am family." "I know, honey. I know. But Evan feels like he wants to make a good impression, and he's worried about what?" The pause was long enough to mean something. He said your job might be a little awkward to explain to Natalie. She's very professional, works in design. Evan's trying to present a certain image. I looked down at my hands, grime under the fingernails, calloused palms, the blister I mentioned, raw and real. "So I'm uninvited," I said. "It's just this year." "It's fine, Mom." "Cole, I understand." And I did, completely, in the clearest possible way. "Thank you for being mature about this," she said, and the relief in her voice was almost worse than everything else. We said goodbye. I hung up. I stood in my kitchen in a jacket, stiff with other people's work, in a house I had renovated myself on a Thursday night when I had been on a job site since 6 that morning, and I thought about the fact that in 5 days, everything my family thought they knew about me was going to come apart in a ballroom filled with 280 people. I did not plan it that way. I did not plan any of it, but I did not call my mother back to warn her either. Let me back up 10 years. I was 21 years old, sitting at my parents' kitchen table in South Charlotte. Heavy oak table, scratch near my father's chair, coffee ring from a mug my mother had set down without a coaster sometime in the 90s. My father was reading the sports section. My mother was doing the crossword. My brother Evan, 19, was texting someone from his economics class at UNC Charlotte. I said, "I'm not going back to community college. I'm enrolling in trade school." My mother's pen stopped mid-letter. "Trade school?" she said. Not a question, a diagnosis. "Carpentry and general contracting," I said. "January start." The silence lasted 5 seconds. It felt much longer. My mother looked at her crossword. My father folded his paper slowly. He said, "Cole, that's physical work, hard work. You're smart. I want to build things," I said. Evan looked up from his phone for the first time. "You're gonna be, like, a construction worker?" he said. "Seriously?" My mother touched my hand. "We just want you to have an easier life than we did." She had been a secretary at a law firm for 23 years. My father worked logistics at a furniture distributor. They had counted coupons, paid bills late, stretched groceries across 2 weeks, and pushed us hard toward college because they believed genuinely that offices meant safety and trades meant struggle. They were wrong about that, but I understood where it came from. "This is what I want," I said. My mother smiled the smile that means she's disappointed but won't fight about it. "We'll support you," she said. Support, I learned, has a very specific shape. Over the next 10 years, they asked Evan about his job at every Sunday dinner, every single one. "How's Bank of America treating you? Did you get that team lead position? What's the 401k match looking like? Are they sending you to the Atlanta conference?" They asked me, "How's work?" Same tone you'd use to ask about the weather. Polite, perfunctory, a checkbox before moving on to Evan's quarterly review. When I got my general contractor's license at 24, I told them at Sunday dinner. "That's great, honey," my mother said, and asked Evan if he'd heard about his promotion. When I started Whitman Build and Design LLC at 26, registered with the state official letterhead, $2 million in liability coverage that cost me $4,800 a year and made me nauseous to sign, I told them at Sunday dinner. "That's a big step," my father said. "Most small businesses fail in the first 5 years." Then my mother asked Evan about his dental benefits. I stopped bringing it up after year 2. I stopped waiting for them to ask, but I kept building anyway. By the time my mother called to uninvite me from Thanksgiving, Whitman Build and Design had completed 68 projects. We employed 19 people. Last year, we brought in $2.1 million in revenue. I personally cleared $195,000 after payroll and expenses. Evan made $72,000 at the bank. But every Sunday, my mother asked him about his job, and every Sunday she asked me how work was, so I stopped waiting for them to see me. The company had its own life by then, regardless of whether my family acknowledged it. Year 1, I started with a used white Dodge Ram, $38,500 cash, company logo on the door. Small, subtle, just the name and a number. Year 2, I hired my first employee. Marcus Webb, 51 years old, a Finnish carpenter who had spent 23 years in residential construction and could look at a crooked 1920s doorway, run his hand along the frame, and tell you exactly how the house had settled and exactly how to make new casing look like it had always been there. He was the best I had ever seen, and I paid him accordingly. Year 3, I landed a $120,000 contract, full gut renovation of a Craftsman bungalow in Dilworth. Original hardwood floors, original windows, a kitchen that hadn't been updated since 1976. We came in on time and $8,000 under budget. The clients cried when I handed them the keys. They referred me to two of their friends. Year 4, 6 employees. Revenue at $860,000. I bought a house in Plaza Midwood that needed work, which was exactly why I could afford it. Renovated it myself over 6 months. New kitchen, new bath, refinished floors. Paid $218,000. It appraised at $295,000 after the renovation. My parents came to see it once. My mother stood in the living room and said, "It's cute, Cole. A little small." My father ran his hand along the kitchen island. "You did all this yourself?" "Most of it," I said. Marcus helped with the hardwood. They didn't stay long. Year 5, present day, November 2025. Whitman Build and Design was projected to hit $2.8 million in revenue. 19 employees. 8 active projects. Our biggest to date was a $340,000 historic home renovation in Myers Park. Original structure from 1912. The client wanted every original detail preserved while we updated the electric, plumbing, HVAC, kitchen, insulation, and safety systems top to bottom. That kind of project gets you noticed if you do it right. It ruins you quietly if you do it wrong. I brought in a designer for it, someone a supplier had recommended. I sent a short email in July. She replied within 2 hours. We met at the site on July 12th. Her name was Natalie Cross. She ran her own firm, Cross & Associates Design. She showed up in a linen blazer and ankle boots. Leather portfolio under her arm. 28, professional, sharp. She walked the house with me, asked intelligent questions about load-bearing walls, original molding profiles, whether we were keeping the pocket doors, whether the dining room sconces could be rewired rather than replaced. "I love this project," she said, standing in the living room and looking up at the original coffered ceiling. "This is the kind of work I got into design for." "Good," I said, "because I need someone who cares as much as I do." We signed the contract 2 weeks later. $28,500 for design services. On my emails and contracts, she saw C. Whitman, owner. On site, she saw me in jeans, a work shirt, and steel-toed boots, directing the crew and carrying a clipboard. She probably assumed I was a project manager, a site supervisor maybe. She never asked. I never corrected her. In early September, we were on site talking through the kitchen layout when she mentioned casually that she'd started seeing someone. "He's in finance," she said. "Downtown, Bank of America." "Nice," I said, not really listening. I was looking at the cabinet specs. The island needed 3 more inches of clearance. She did not offer his name. I did not ask. Professional boundaries. I did not know that the boyfriend was Evan. I did not know that when Evan talked about me, he called me my older brother who works construction. I did not know he told her I was kind of the family black sheep. I did not know that Natalie, when she heard works construction, pictured someone on a cruise somewhere, not someone signing her $28,000 contract. The math, in hindsight, was obvious. She started working with me in July. She started dating someone in finance in late August. By November, she was serious enough that he was bringing her home for Thanksgiving. I didn't connect the dots. Why would I? Evan and I talked at Sunday dinners the way you talk to a coworker you don't particularly know, politely, briefly, about nothing real. Natalie and I talked about tile and trim and paint colors and whether the original dining room sconces could be rewired. Our personal lives existed in completely separate rooms, so when my mother called and said Evan was bringing his girlfriend Natalie to Thanksgiving, I heard a common name and thought nothing of it. And when she told me I was uninvited because my job would embarrass him, I thought only about the fact that my family had been ashamed of me for 10 years, and this was just the moment it got said out loud. I spent Thanksgiving alone. I woke at 5:30, same as always, made coffee in my French press, black, no sugar, and stood at the kitchen window watching daylight come up over the oak trees in the yard. 58 degrees and clear, the November sky that particular shade of blue that looks clean and cold at the same time. It was Thanksgiving, and I had nowhere to go. I drove to the Dilworth site at 6:45. The bungalow renovation was nearly done, just trim work and final details on the refinished floors. I let myself in, changed into work clothes, and spent the morning finishing baseboards in the living room. Caulking, sanding, detail work, the kind of task that demands focus and repays it with quiet. I worked until 3, ate leftover Thai food on the front porch, pad CU and spring rolls, 1840 from the place on South Boulevard, watched the afternoon sun fall through the bare trees on the street. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Happy Thanksgiving. He did not say wish you were here, did not say I'm sorry, did not acknowledge the thing he had done. Just those 2 words, clean and empty as a form letter. I stared at it for a while. Then I put the phone in my pocket and drove home. 5 days later, I put on a black suit, a white shirt, and dress shoes I had bought specifically for events like this. I drove my Dodge Ram to the Valentine Hotel and Conference Center in Uptown Charlotte and walked into the annual awards gala for the Charlotte Home Builders Association. 280 people, industry people, contractors, architects, suppliers, city officials, developers, corporate sponsors. Bank of America was one of those sponsors. I knew that. I did not think about what it meant. I checked in at the registration table. The woman behind it, mid-50s, reading glasses on a beaded chain, ran her finger down down the list and found my name. She handed me a name tag. Cole Whitman. Whitman Build and Design. Nominee. Good luck tonight, she said. I pinned it to my jacket and walked into the ballroom. Round tables in white linen, burgundy and gold centerpieces. A stage at the far end with a podium and a screen displaying the CHBA logo. The lighting was warm amber, the kind that makes everything feel slightly more significant than it is. I found table 12, the nominees table, sat down, exchanged pleasantries with two contractors I recognized from industry events, laughed at someone's joke about rubbery gala chicken. Then I picked up the program booklet and glanced around the room. Table 23, 40 feet from the stage. Evan, in a navy suit. My mother, in a burgundy dress. My father, looking uncomfortable in a tie. And Natalie Cross, in a black cocktail dress, hair pulled back, smiling at something Evan was saying. My breath stopped. Evan worked for Bank of America. Bank of America sponsored the event. He must have gotten tickets, brought our parents to impress them, brought Natalie to show her his professional world. None of them had seen me yet. I set the program down and turned back to my table. My hands were steady. My face was calm. Inside, something was very loud and very quiet at the same time. Dinner was served at 6:45, chicken that could have been worse, mashed potatoes, green beans, a roll that could double as a doorstop, as predicted. I ate because I needed something to do with my hands and watched table 23 in my peripheral vision. My mother laughing at something. My father nodding along. Evan looking proud and relaxed. Natalie charming all of them, I was sure, because she was very good at that. At 7:15, the MC took the stage. Margaret Hollis, president of the CHBA, 20 years in Charlotte real estate development, red dress, and a confident smile. Good evening, she said, and the room settled. Welcome to the Charlotte Home Builders Association Annual Awards. Tonight we celebrate the extraordinary work being done across our city. Applause. Sponsor acknowledgements. Bank of America got a mention, and I watched Evan sit up straighter at table 23. Then Margaret said, let's begin with one of our most exciting categories, Contractor of the Year under 35. At table 23, Natalie leaned forward. She was a designer. This category mattered to her professionally. This award recognizes a contractor who has demonstrated exceptional growth, quality craftsmanship, and client satisfaction, all before the age of 35. This year's nominees have shown remarkable dedication to their craft. The slide appeared on the screen. 3 names: Daniel Pritchard, Pritchard Renovations, Cole Whitman, Whitman Build and Design, Sam Greenberg, Greenberg Custom Homes. 40 feet away, I watched Natalie freeze, watched her look at the screen, watched her look at her program booklet, watched her flip to the nominee descriptions and read, Cole Whitman, owner of Whitman Build and Design, has completed 68 residential projects in 5 years with an average client satisfaction rating of 4.9 stars. His company employs 19 full-time staff and is projected to reach $2.8 million in revenue this year. Whitman is known for meticulous project management and a commitment to preserving historic architecture. She turned to Evan. I could not hear what she said, but I saw her point at the screen. Evan followed her finger. His face went from confused to something I had never seen on him before, something that had no defense in it at all. My mother noticed, looked where they were pointing. Her hand went to her chest. My father turned, saw the screen, went completely blank. At table 12, I sat perfectly still. Margaret was still speaking. The selection criteria include revenue growth of at least 150% over 3 years, exemplary client satisfaction, and demonstrated community impact. This year's winner has exceeded all of those metrics. She paused, opened the envelope. The contractor of the year under 35 is Cole Whitman, Whitman Build and Design. The room erupted. A spotlight found me. I stood. My legs felt like water, but I stood. Marcus, who was at the table, I had brought him as my guest, grabbed my shoulder and squeezed once, hard. I walked toward the stage. I passed table 23. I let myself look for exactly 1 second. My mother's champagne glass was frozen halfway to her lips. My father's expression was the blankest I had ever seen it. Evan looked like a man watching a wall he thought was solid walk away. And Natalie was not looking at me. She was looking at Evan, watching his face, connecting everything at once. I climbed the stairs. Margaret handed me the award. Crystal, heavy, real. She shook my hand, stepped aside. The microphone was in front of me. 280 people. I kept it short. I kept it steady. Thank you, I said, and my voice was steady in a way that surprised me. 5 years ago, I started Whitman Build with a truck, a tool belt, and the belief that good work speaks for itself. Tonight, we've completed 68 projects. We employ 19 people, and we've proven that if you show up, respect the craft, and do the work, the rest takes care of itself. I paused. To everyone who believed in what we were building, even when it wasn't visible yet, thank you. Even when it wasn't visible yet. I did not look at table 23 when I said it. I did not need to. I stepped back from the microphone. The applause came in a wave. I walked off the stage and back to my table, and Marcus handed me a glass of champagne and said, "You earned that," and I believed him. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from an unsaved number. "We need to talk." "Mom." I turned the phone face down. "Not yet. Cocktail hour started at 8. I was talking with Jim Bradshaw from Bradshaw Electric, our go-to subcontractor for the past 3 years. Excellent work, fair pricing. When I saw my mother coming through the crowd, fast. My My father 2 steps behind her, looking uncertain. Jim clocked the dynamic immediately. I'll catch you later, Cole. Congrats again. Thanks, Jim. My mother stopped in front of me, clutching her purse with both hands. We had no idea, she said. I know, I said. We had no idea you'd be here. No idea you were even nominated. We had no idea. That's correct, I said. You didn't. My father stepped closer. Cole, why didn't you tell us about the nomination, about how big the company had gotten? I looked at him. 10 years of Sunday dinners, 10 years of how's work, 10 years of that's nice, honey, and then asking Evan about his quarterly bonuses. I did tell you, I said, quietly enough that the people around us couldn't hear. 5 years ago, I told you I started a company. You said be careful, small businesses fail, and then asked Evan about his dental benefits. My mother's eyes went shiny. But this is, she started, this is a real company. I looked at her. What did you think I did? I said, sweep floors? No one answered. Excuse me, I said. I have sponsors to thank. I walked past them, made it 5 steps before Evan caught up. He grabbed my elbow. I stopped, turned. Don't, I said. He let go, hands up. I didn't know, he said. I didn't know it was this big. You never asked. You never said. I did, Evan. Every Sunday for 5 years. You just never listened. His face was red, defensive, the particular red of someone who knows they're wrong, but hasn't fully landed there yet. You always showed up in work clothes, he said. You never talked about clients or revenue or because no one ever asked me to. My voice stayed flat and even. That was the part that seemed to bother him most. Natalie won't even look at me, he said quietly. That's not my problem. You're really going to hold this against me? I looked at my little brother, 28 years old, Navy suit, standing in a ballroom where his own family had just discovered they'd spent a decade dismissing a man who was out-earning him 3-to-1. You uninvited me from Thanksgiving, I said, because my job embarrassed you. Yeah, I'm gonna hold that for a while. Cole, we're done here. I walked away, heard him say my name once more behind me, did not turn around. I made it to the bar before Natalie found me. Can we talk? She said. Alone? We found a quiet corner near the lobby windows. Outside, the November night was dark and cold. Headlights moved through the parking lot below. She took a breath. I'm sorry, she said. I feel like an idiot. I should have connected it. See Whitman on the emails. Whitman Build and Design on the contract. I saw you on site every week and I just assumed that I was an employee, I said. Not the owner. Yes, she shook her head. It's not an excuse. I should have asked. You're not the first, I said. Won't be the last. She was quiet for a moment. He told his family you were the black sheep, she said. He said you'd never amount to anything, that you were jealous of his career. The words landed hard. I kept my face still. I'm going to keep working with you, she said. On the Morrison project and anything after, if you'll have me. That has nothing to do with tonight. She pulled a business card from her purse. Cream stock, embossed lettering, Natalie Cross, Cross and Associates Design. Professional only, she said. I'm done with Evan. I took the card. The work's been good, I said. It has. She paused. I'm sorry it took this to make anyone see you clearly. She walked back toward the ballroom. I stood at the window for a moment, looking at the parking lot below, at the ordinary dark city moving through its ordinary Tuesday night. Then my mother appeared in the lobby, my father beside her, looking like a man who had just realized he'd been reading a map upside down for 10 years. Cole, please. I stopped. Can we take you to dinner? She asked. To celebrate? I looked at her. She was 63 years old. She had worked as a secretary for 23 years watching men with less skill get promoted past her. She had pushed us toward white-collar jobs because she believed that was the only kind of respect that existed. She had wanted us to have easier lives than hers. In doing that, she had missed the life I had actually built. No, I said, but thank you for asking. For the first time, her face crumpled completely. My father reached for her hand. I need to go, I said. I walked through the lobby and out into the November night. 46 degrees. My breath made small clouds in the air. I walked to my truck, got in, set the award on the passenger seat. Contractor of the year under 35. Cole Whitman. Whitman Build and Design. I started the engine. The heat came on. I sat there with both hands on the wheel, looking through the windshield at the lit entrance of the hotel. People still moving in and out. The ordinary end of an extraordinary evening. I did not feel triumphant. I felt something quieter than that. Something like, I built this. In spite of all of it, I built this. Then I put the truck in drive and went home. The first email came 3 days later, Sunday morning, 6:23 a.m. from my father. Subject, we owe you an apology. Cole, I've been trying to write this for 3 days and there's no good way to do it. We failed you. We assumed. We dismissed. We never asked what you were building because we were afraid it wouldn't match the picture we had in our heads. We were wrong. I watched you walk across that stage Tuesday night and realized I don't know my own son. I don't know what you've built or what it cost you or what it took. That's on me. I'm ashamed we made you feel invisible. I'm proud of you. I should have said that 5 years ago. Dad, I read it 3 times. The sign-off was what got me. Dad, not his name. Not a formal initial. Just that word. Simple and unguarded. I set the phone on the nightstand and looked at the ceiling. At 10:15, my mother texted, "Can we talk in person?" I replied after a long pause. Coffee. Thursday. Morning grounds. 9 a.m. She replied immediately. I'll be there. At 2 in the afternoon, my voicemail lit up. Evan, I almost deleted it. I didn't. 4 minutes and 18 seconds. Cole, it's me. I know you don't want to hear from me right now. I don't blame you. I just need to say this out loud. I didn't know what you'd built. I should have known. I should have asked. I should have paid attention for the last 10 years instead of assuming I already understood you, but I didn't. I was so focused on looking successful that I couldn't see you were already more successful than I'll probably ever be. Natalie broke up with me. She said I showed her who I really was, and she was right. I'm sorry, Cole. I don't know if you'll forgive me, but I needed to say it. I listened to it twice. Then I went back to work. Thursday, I arrived at Morning Grounds at 8:50. Brick walls, Edison bulbs, espresso and cinnamon in the air. Found a table by the window. Black coffee, no sugar. My mother arrived at 8:58. Gray sweater, jeans, no real makeup. She looked like she hadn't slept well in days, which I suspected was true. She sat down. A barista appeared. Black coffee, she said, glancing at my cup. No sugar. The barista left. You still take it that way, she said. Yeah, I should have remembered that. A small thing, but accurate. We sat with that for a moment. I don't know where to start, she said. Start with why, I said. Why you never asked. Why it never occurred to you to look closer. Why you let Evan uninvite me to Thanksgiving. She flinched. Then she took a slow breath. I worked as a secretary for 23 years, she said. I watched men with half my skill get promoted while I answered their phones. I wanted you and Evan to have more than that. I wanted you to have respect. A career people recognized when you said the name. I have that, I said. I know. Her voice broke slightly. I know that now. But when you said trade school at 21, all I could see was struggle, hard labor, low pay. I couldn't imagine it becoming what you made it, because you never looked, I said. Not as an accusation, just as a fact. She nodded. I'm sorry, Cole. I made you feel like what you built wasn't worth seeing, and I didn't even realize I was doing it until I saw 280 people stand up for you. I looked out the window. A woman was loading groceries into a minivan across the street. Normal Tuesday morning life, indifferent to everything that had happened in the last 5 days. I needed you to be proud of the work, I said. Not the award, the actual work. What it takes to show up at 6 in the morning and make something out of nothing. I'm proud of that now, she said. Does it count, even late? I looked at her face, the lines around her eyes, the gray at her temples she'd stopped coloring, the way her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like it was the steadiest thing in the room. I'll come to Christmas, I said. Her head came up fast. One condition. Anything. If anyone minimizes the job, makes a joke, changes the subject, treats it like it's less than what Evan does, I leave, and I won't come back. Okay, she said quietly, and I'm not dressing differently or talking differently to make anyone comfortable. This is who I am. I know. I accept that. I do. I nodded. And I'm bringing Marcus, I said. My lead carpenter. He's been with me since year 1 and he doesn't have family here. A flicker crossed her face. A small adjustment. Then she nodded. We'd love to have him. We finished our coffee. 43 minutes, start to finish. When we stood to leave, she hugged me. I let her. Christmas came. I drove to my parents' house with Marcus in the passenger seat. He was nervous in the way people are nervous when they're walking into someone else's family history. You sure about this? He said. No, I said, but we're going anyway. He laughed. It broke the tension the way laughing usually does. My mother answered the door, warm and genuine. My father came out of the kitchen, shook Marcus's hand and said, Cole talks about your trim work. I'd like to see it sometime. Marcus blinked. Yes, sir. Anytime. Evan was on the couch. He looked up when I walked in. We held eye contact for a moment. He nodded. I nodded back. No words. Not yet. But something slightly less broken than what had existed before. We sat down to dinner at 1. Halfway through, my father set down his fork and said, Cole, how's the Myers Park project coming? I looked at him. He was asking. Actually asking. With his eyes on me and his full attention available. Good, I said. We're finishing the kitchen this week. Historic tile. Took 3 weeks to source it correctly. How do you source something like that? My mother asked. Salvage yards mostly. Sometimes specialty suppliers in Atlanta. I didn't know that, she said. Most people don't. She nodded. I'd like to see it sometime. The finished project. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. Marcus caught my eye across the table. He said nothing, but the corner of his mouth moved. We left at 3. I shook my father's hand at the door, and for the first time in memory, he held it a second longer than a handshake requires. I'm proud of you, son, he said. Simple, direct, 10 years late. Thank you, Dad. In the truck on the way home, Marcus said, that wasn't so bad. No, I said. It wasn't. By June of 2026, I was standing in the shell of a new build in South Park, hard hat on, clipboard under my arm, watching the framers set the last load-bearing wall on a $410,000 custom build for a couple relocating from New York. Morning. The sky was that early summer blue, clear and deep. The crew was moving well. The framing was ahead of schedule. Marcus walked up beside me. Looking good, he said. Yeah, I said. We're on track. My phone buzzed. My mother. A Thursday afternoon call, not a Sunday, which was still new enough to notice. Hey, Mom. Hi, honey. Just wanted to hear your voice. How's the South Park project? Good. Framing's done. Plumbing and electric start next week. Your father wanted to know if they could come see it. The site. I looked out at the framers working in the morning light. The clean angles of new walls against the sky. The particular satisfaction of a structure rising out of nothing. Yeah, I said. I'd like that. We talked for 11 minutes. She asked real questions about permits, about inspections, about how I handled weather delays. I answered without armor. Love you, honey, she said. Love you too, Mom. I hung up and stood there for a moment with the phone in my my hand, looking at the framing crew and the June sky and the work in front of me. Then I clipped the phone to my belt and got back to it. That evening, I sat in my truck in the parking lot outside our office. A real office now. 2 rooms, a conference table, a wall of project photos, with the engine off and the windows down, watching the sun go orange and low over the city. Through the office window, I could see the crystal trophy on the shelf. It caught the last of the day's light and threw small rainbows across the wall behind it. I thought about the phone call 11 months earlier, my mother's careful voice, the disinvitation, the way 2 words, Happy Thanksgiving, had sat in my phone for 3 days unanswered. I thought about standing in a ballroom watching my family's faces understand what they had missed. I thought about my father's email, the voicemail from Evan that I had listened to twice, the coffee with my mother and the Christmas dinner and my father's handshake that lasted 1 second longer than it needed to. None of it fixed 10 years. We were still learning each other, still awkward in the spaces where we should be fluent. Evan and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was careful and incomplete. 2 people picking their way through something that didn't have a cleared path yet, but they were trying, and that was more than I'd had before. I used to think I was building houses, but what I was really building all along was proof. Proof that I was worth the attention, worth the question, worth the answer to what are you working on asked by someone who actually wanted to know. I don't need to prove it anymore, but I'll keep building anyway, because the work itself is the point, always has been, and that part has nothing to do with them. I started the truck. The radio came on low. I pulled out of the lot and drove home through the June evening, the city gold and warm around me, the odometer reading 91,440 miles. They used to ask how work was. Now they ask what I'm building. It took a ballroom and 280 witnesses to get here, but we got here, and that is more than I expected.